Welcome back to Dark Reading News Desk. I'm Fahmida Rashid, Managing Editor of Features. With me today is Rich Mogull, CEO of Securosis and Senior Vice President of Fahmida. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Rich.
for having me. Excited to be here.
So you've been doing cloud security trainings at Black Hat for quite a number of years at this point.
I think it's 12, 13, 14 years, something like that, yeah.
So, that's, I think, awesome. You come here, everybody's learning a lot of things, and you dedicate all this time. But you started something new recently, I think about 6 months ago?
Back in December, yep.
Back in December. And I want you to tell us a little bit about this project that you started.
Sure, so it's called Cloud Security Lab a Week, or Cloud Slaw. That was one of those in the shower moments. I'm like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a weekly newsletter, so it's a 15 to 30 minute hands-on cloud security lab that's designed for anybody, no matter your experience level. And I mean like no security experience and no cloud experience, so starting from zero. Now you do need to know the difference between an API and an IPA, for example, but so you have to have some technical skills.
Yeah.
But every week, just delivered right into your inbox, and they're all in order, starting with the fundamentals.
So the thing I wanted to ask here is, I remember, so I signed up for a class, I think as soon as you announced it, because I'm just saying, I would love to learn this. What kind of people do you have signing up? Do you have any visibility in your subscribers?
I have very little. So, I see a lot of like Gmail addresses and personal emails and corporate. I get some feedback, so that is helpful. And it's kind of all over the spectrum. I have people who are not in security, not on the IT side full time at all, who are taking it. But I would say it skews to people with either security or DevOpsy kind of background. That tends to be the ones, at least the ones that are reaching out and emailing me.
Sure. And when you're thinking about what lab you're going to do, I know like the first few ones was, okay, let's set up the CloudTrail, let's set up this moment. How do you come up with what your next lab assignment is? So
this is like, it is a very deliberate structure. So some of it is from having been teaching cloud security for, over a decade. Like back when it was really rough to do things in cloud in the early days. But I wasn't sure at first. So I had kind of an outline for some basics. And then I had some friends. A friend of mine named Chris Ferris, we presented some conferences together. He's a really amazing cloud security expert. And I'm like, I'm thinking of jumping around a little bit. And he goes, no. He's like, Rich, you are starting the foundation from you don't know anything about cloud to how to build, and these are all in AWS right now, how to build a secure enterprise scale AWS organization and all the steps in between. So mostly I'm following the process that I follow if I'm building one myself, or when companies hire me to come in and help them build their programs or fix their broken programs. This is exactly how I build things out. And a little bit of jumping around because, teaching and doing, you have to go out of order, but the goal is just kind of get all of it.
So when you're assuming no knowledge, like you said, you're starting from the beginning, do you find yourself having to think differently about how you're going to describe things because you don't know the skill level? Yeah,
there's two things. One is I don't know the skill level, and so I can't assume they know the context exactly of what we're doing. And the other part of that is kind of thinking through my brain, not just the technical steps, but are there foundational security principles that I can teach with these labs?
Right.
So, for example, and you've gone through this in the identity management section.
Oh, yeah.
And even in just a 15 to 30 minutes of the video or the blog post, whichever way people learn, I cover, okay, here are the basics of IAM. Like this is an entity and an identity and an identifier. Like terms a lot of security people don't actually know themselves because they just skip to configuring things in tools. Sure. So I'm really trying to teach the foundations as we go along. And because I have an infinite canvas to work with, there's no end date to this. Right. So I can take as much time as I can. However, the challenge is it's going to be a lab. So I'm not just lecture, and I have a few paragraphs to go over those and then have a lab to illustrate it. And that's the harder part, to piece it together.
Sure. And for a lot of people, I know I've recommended coleslaw to cloud slaw, sorry, to people, and their first question is, well, you've already been doing it for months now.
Yeah.
Are they going to be behind because
No.
they haven't seen the earlier lab? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so one of the things, this was an experiment in learning to me. I actually have some online education background going. Way in my past, I worked at a university, and I was the director of software development for the College of Business at the University of Colorado.
Okay.
My team was building the online learning like in the 90s. Yeah. Ask me about our virtual reality. We had VR we were using back then, not goggles, computers, but yeah. So I designed it so that, one, you can come in and you can sign up for the newsletter. When you do, you start at the first lab that I wrote back in December.
Right.
So you get all of the labs in order no matter when you sign up.
Okay.
Or it's also posted real time on the blog, so you can just go get that. So you can jump around, and if you're advanced, you can just race through them. And then I also do them all on a video as well over on YouTube. So I'm trying to hit different learning modalities based on what works cognitively better for that individual person.
And I think that is so important because as we're realizing, different people learn differently. And when you are doing separate models like that, you are actually expanding your audience. Do you find that maybe one method is a little easier for your style of teaching?
It's not even easier for me. I actually have a cool way that I learned to build these things. So I'll write out the lesson part of the blog post. It's always a lesson and a lab.
Right.
So I'll write out the lesson part, maybe modify it a little bit, put that on the teleprompter in my office,
Sure.
record the video of the lesson, stop. Then I record the video of the lab as a walkthrough. Then I do the screenshots off the video and I paste those into the blog post.
Okay.
So it's pretty efficient. The fascinating thing to me is like nobody watches the videos, and I don't know why I bother. Like my video numbers are somewhere, most videos, less than 50 views on the YouTube videos, where the blog posts and the newsletter, I have thousands of people looking at that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is just trying to figure out what works, but I'm glad that you're doing all three.
Well, I'm taking this lesson now, like I hate to say it, like when I do more professional stuff, I realize people like the short blog format with the screenshots. And they like that better than watching videos. And if you think about most of our online training, it's slides and videos. I'm writing these as a narrative. I mean, I'm not a writer like you, but I'm a writer. And so I think of it in terms
You've written for me before. You are definitely a writer.
I know. Dark Reading used to pay me. Okay, a long time ago. But I write it as a narrative, and I try to write it as like an article, and that seems to be, for whatever reason, more popular by far.
I mean, I'll be honest, for me, the easiest part is the screenshots.
Yeah.
So I definitely am one of those people not looking at your video. But so one thing I'm also curious about is you already have a lot of things. You're doing training, you're a fireman. What made you think about, hey, this is a thing I want to do? I mean, this is your side hustle at this point.
Yeah, not much of a hustle. I'm a bad hustler. I'm not making anything really off of it. Well, the inspiration was I have been so focused, particularly with the work I do at Firemon, building product. And with Securosis, starting years ago, we started doing a lot more like direct advisory work and writing for the Cloud Security Alliance. So I wasn't writing anymore. I mean, I wasn't blogging. I hadn't blogged much in years. I hadn't done a lot of my, kind of engaging with the community at that level. It was a lot more behind the scenes and advisory work with companies and everything. And I just kind of started to miss it. I missed the just engaging with new people and putting new ideas out there and seeing if I can make a change. And so I was like, well, nobody needs another newsletter with the news. There's great ones, TLDR Sec and Matt with Vulnerable You and Daniel Miesler, and like all my friends with all of these newsletters that do a great job of covering different areas of the news. And I'm like, what can I bring to the table? And that's when I realized, you know what? I'm really good at teaching this stuff, and especially cloud that I know really, really well. And so that, I'm like, why don't I just do that?
Well, thank you so much. I'm hoping that people are going to check out CloudSlaw.
Thank you.
Do you have a specific URL, or how should they
Yeah,
find
it's,
you?
You have to slaw, S-L-A-W dot Securosis, Securosis.com.
Okay, I'm going to make sure to put that in the YouTube description. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.